Ladies and gentlemen, this is 133rd day of the Russian invasion and the 9th year of war of Russian Federation against Ukraine. My name is Andriy Shevchenko, and from behalf of the media center Ukrinform, I welcome all the journalists who are telling the world about our fight for freedom. So now we are in touch with Vyacheslav Chaus, head of Chernihiv Oblast Military Administration. Vyacheslav, what are the news as of today? Andriy, hello, and I wish health to all of you in the studio. As of today, the enemy, if we are speaking about the security component, the enemy is constantly conducting shelling of Chernihiv border region. Almost every day they are shelling Novgorod-Siversk and Semenivka communities, Hromada, Zhorodnyanshchina. So we are ready, and we are constantly ready for any actions of the enemy as of today. But the enemy is keeping us in tonus. So what's the aim of these shellings? Well, I think that first and foremost to drive attention to their presence there, for us to understand that they are there, though we know that already, and that just to destruct some of the forces and means of the armed forces of Ukraine to Chernihiv Oblast. If we've got any questions to the journalists, could you please raise your hands and use the mics? And I would like to ask you about the news from Belarus. What do you hear from your Belarusian, Belarus neighbors? We hear that they have some of the exercises and trainings. They try to make everything in order. We know that there is some amount of enemy's equipment, Russian equipment and armament there, and the missiles against Chernihiv, including, are also launched from the territory of Belarus by Russian aircrafts. And of course, we understand that there is a certain threat that sooner or later the Belarusian part can also be beginning the active part of combats. Do we have any questions? Yes, please. Vyacheslav, Ukrinform. I've got two questions. So the first is about the infrastructure. As far as we know from the media, Chernihiv region has had damaged 20 bridges. 19 temporary transfers are now instead of them. Is there any opportunity that before the end of the war you will begin the recovery of the permanent constructions, or it will be all temporary as it is now? And secondly, what are the perspectives of the accommodation provision to the Chernihiv residents who unfortunately lost their residence because of the attacks of the Russians, at least for those Chernihiv residents who are staying there and did not evacuate to the western regions? Thank you, Vyacheslav, for the questions. As for the bridges, yes, really. Well, a bit more than 2 dozens of bridges. I don't want to tell you the specific number. I would say 25 plus are destroyed because of the Russian aggression. You're right, 19 of them are restored, but we are restoring them according to the temporary system. But now they allow to fully use them. So the transport is going through them. Whether we will recover the bridges on a permanent basis, yes. We have begun some of the works already, and I thank the Service Motor Roads together with whom we are collaborating and efficiently. And we have begun already to work on several bridges which were already destroyed, and I thank the Ukrainian railways that they restored the railway connection, which is incredibly important for the region. I cannot name them now, I cannot list them because of the security reasons, but I do hope that during the 3 months before the frosts, before the winter, we will restore the bridges, which will allow us to get rid of some of the constructions which we have now, and which won't be that easy to use in the winter. That's about the bridges. As for the accommodation, can I clarify about the bridges? We know that mostly the important priority was the recovery of the automobile connection between Chernihiv and Kiev. How long is the way between 2 cities now? As of today, we have really restored, the day before yesterday, we restored the connection between the cities, the automobile one, which is unfortunately restricted by the time and by the cargo and load. It's only 10 tons, not more, but it allows for all the vehicles, all the route buses and other vehicles to use those connection roads. The majority of the trucks can also be working there, and as it used to work before, now this time is about an hour and a half, an hour 40 minutes. And you mean the temporary transfer through Desna River? I don't want to tell that on air. I don't want to speak about that. This is one of the channels of logistics which are now additional, in addition to what we had during the last 3 months. Well, of course, it's much more convenient and now, and the residents of Chernihiv and the northern part of Chernihiv Oblast can easily and quickly get to any business which they needed, and they had to spend it 2, 3, or even 4 hours before. And now we have the connection between the villages on both sides of Desna River. Lots of people who were living there were working in Chernihiv, so this logistics has sped up substantially. As for accommodation, this is the biggest issue and problem as of today, because the state as of today has already allocated 400 million for Chernihiv, that is the water delivery and supply, and also the power supply. Then we sent it to the hospitals and the kindergartens, because the people are coming back with the children need to stay somewhere, and if we provide secure and safe conditions of staying there, the bomb shelters, and then we will launch the work of the kindergartens. And as for the accommodation, which was damaged most of all, because the whole private sector around Chernihiv was destroyed, including villages and suburbs of Chernihiv. So, in fact, there was also destroyed almost 2 dozens of multi-storied buildings, let alone the damaged buildings. Because if we speak about the damaged ones, those are about half a hundred. So, now, as of some of the critical residential buildings, that is 25 multi-storied buildings, we have conducted the research and investigation of them, and now we are shaping the list of expenses, and we will begin, as for the region, we will begin the works. Some of the buildings, of course, I think that we'll need to demolish them, because they are not totally, they cannot be used at all. As a temporary way out, we can see module campuses, but of course it's only temporary, because we don't want people to live in such a kind of residence on a constant basis. But if we look at the basements, then module buildings is a temporary option, is better than the basement. The country is at war and is spending a lot for war, so we are trying to find donors, and we try to attract and involve international organizations, charity organizations, which take as a one-time event, they take the reconstruction of some of the objects. Are there any other questions? Yes, please.
My name is Norito Kunisue from the Asahi Shimbun, Japanese newspaper. I would like to know the situation in Slavčići. At first, how is the sharing situation, and how is the working situation for a nuclear facility there, and also the transport from here to Slavčići? Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Norito. Well, if we speak about the security component again, then as of today, Chernihiv region is totally free from adversary. It's liberated from the adversary. So now we can see shellings of the border regions of Chernihiv region. That is the northern region of the region. If we speak about Chernobyl, Chernobyl power plant is in Kiev region. So, as far as I know, they also don't have any direct threats, but still we understand that the enemy is constantly using missiles, and those missiles, in spite of us shooting them down with our anti-air defense systems, some of them still hit their aims. So just to say that we can permanently and constantly and fully be secure from provocations, I cannot tell that. Now, in our country, it is dangerous anywhere, because the missiles are flying in bigger numbers, and we cannot shoot them, all of them, down. But I do hope that the bigger the international support is, the more efficient we are working. And sometimes the missiles hit the objects. If we speak about our region, then during the last month, we had the shelling of Desna. We have the settlement of Desna, but we didn't have any casualties, thanks God. Then there was one more shelling before, and there were more than 80 killed citizens there. There was the shelling of Novgorod-Siversky. All of those are missile shellings. Recently, we had... there was the shelling of the suburbs of Priluki city, and as there was the threat of detonation of some of the reserves, we had to even conduct evacuation of the 4 settlements which are located nearby. We organized it successfully, thanks God, and nothing bad happened there. So it is dangerous in the whole country. So just to say that our nuclear objects are totally secure, we cannot tell that now. But if we speak about Chernihiv region, we don't have such objects in Chernihiv region, like nuclear power plant. Vyacheslav Chaus, this was the head of Chernihiv Regional Military Administration. Thank you for this conversation. Thank you, Andriy. Thank you, dear colleagues. And our next briefing will start at 2 p.m. Kyiv time. We will be speaking with Vitaly Kim, the head of Mykolaiv Regional Military Administration. Stand with Ukraine.